Chapter 1. Master Grey staggered down the street, close to death. The King's sorcerer had to grab for a wall to steady himself and keep from collapsing. He stumbled on, making his way from one solid point to the next, knowing that if he fell he wouldn't get up. He limped his way through the doorway of an abandoned building as daylight returned to Royal Sport. Sweat beaded on his bald head with the effort, and he leaned on a length of wood he found, using it for support as he made his way inside. The building seemed to be empty, which was probably just as well. Grey didn't have the energy left to convince anyone to leave him be, and he was sure that Emperor Ravin would pay handsomely for the former King's sorcerer. He smiled bitterly. Unless he rested soon, Ravin's people wouldn't have to do anything to kill him. He slumped against the wall for a second or two, then forced himself to climb through the house. Everything hurt in the wake of his fight with the Hidden, and there were sections of stairs where he had to all but crawl. Grey passed by room after room until he came to a bedroom set at the very top of the house, possessions scattered on a broad bed as if someone had taken what they could in a hurry. There was a jug of cheap wine set on a table by the bed, and Master Grey sipped it, then spat it out, tasting brackish water mixed with his own blood. It had obviously been sitting there since the invasion. The room had broad, arched windows that let in the sunlight. They also gave him a good spot from which to slump against the wall and look out over the city as the sun rose. He stared out at Royal Sport's houses and its open spaces, taking in all the spaces that lay between its walls and beyond. Master Grey knew Royal Sport as well as any man alive. All that it had been, all that it was, perhaps even what it would be. He ached as he looked out through its windows, and that ache felt bone-deep, pain coming from every atom of his being in the wake of his fight with the Hidden, and the dragon attack that had scoured the city with fire. Master Grey could still see the aftermath of that attack as he stared out, seeing the points where the fires still smouldered in the noble district, and the market space around the House of Merchants, the slums, and the space around the House of Weapons. In too many spots there were still full flames, consuming buildings as people could only watch, looking on while all they owned burned. In other parts people were moving from island to island within the city, wading across the streams since they were at low tide. Many were carrying buckets, and Grey saw a whole chain of them heading in the direction of the House of Sigh's colourful exterior, putting out what remained of the dragon fire in Royal Sport's interior. To all the people there it must have seemed like one more disaster piled upon the terror of the invasion. They'd seen their city fall, their former queen killed for attempting an uprising. The news had gone round that the princesses Lenore and Erin had been killed by quiet men. They'd had to endure the repression brought by the regime, with food and young men taken for the army, coin seized in taxes or simple plunder. Even now the castle stood closed off, its gates shut, no help coming from it for those whose homes burned or whose families lay dead in the wake of the assault. Grey could only imagine their terror as the dragon had attacked, although he'd felt his own share of it as it had hovered overhead. He'd been grateful for it, too. In the moment when it had struck, his conflict against the Hidden had been... He'd been going to die. There, he could admit that much to himself, at least. For all the power and knowledge he'd built in the course of a long life, he'd been just moments away from death. All three of the Hidden together had been too much for him to take on alone. Without the intervention of the dragon, he would have lost, would have been killed. Grey sat there at the top of the building he'd found, contemplating his mortality in a way that he hadn't in a long time. He'd very rarely had any reason to, when magic had kept him safe, extended his life, let him do incredible things. He'd seen some of the dangers of what was coming, but now he could feel the weight of them pressing down on him, exhausting and draining as all the rest of it. Grey slumped against the frame of the window, using it to hold himself up. His white robes were filthy now, edged with soot and marred by mud in the spots where he'd fallen.